Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Duval Dive. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, a student of the game.
And I'm Travis Holmes with BigCatCountry.com.
And you're listening to this thing on the Believe Podcast Network. By the way, if you have a moment, go ahead and subscribe to the Duval Dive YouTube channel. Hit the bell, do all the things. Be reminded on a regular basis that you or either we are going live, whether you can make it or not. And if you can't make it, don't worry, you can still get it on demand, like our dude Radius does on a regular basis, reminding us that the standard is the standard based on what he saw at this weekend's Super Bowl festivities, and wishing us well for the stream and giving you credit, champion, of your accurate Super Bowl predictor on the WinFL podcast. Now, granted, I did say 33-17. I was pretty close, but you landed the plane even closer, if I remember correctly. So there you go.
I think they gave me the participation trophy, but I appreciate it nevertheless. I think I was actually tied with Ian for the. Technically, we both had. It was crazy how we had like a three-way tie. But I think they gave it to me because he's a host of the show. But either way, I appreciate it.
You know, you had to do it from their perspective across the pond. So there you go, right?
Yeah,
you know,
it was a much better game than I thought it was going to be from a defensive point of view, because I'm a defensive guy. I know people were like, "Oh, it's terrible because of bad quarterback play," or it was great because great defensive play.
Correct. Yeah, I'm glad you made the point you made about that, because there are too many people. Oh, this game's boring. Shut your face. Okay. How often on this show and others have I preached the Seattle Seahawks defensive tackles are the most underappreciated group in the NFL? And that defensive line was on display throughout the year. And listen, as much as we talked about, you know, the Patriots having an easy schedule, as much as we talked about multiple teams that could have made for a better Super Bowl, including the Jacksonville Jaguars, I might add, I believe Travis has found a pretty good dramatization of what this Super Bowl kind of looked like from our perspective, listening to all the talk surrounding the Patriots heading into it. Something like this, maybe. The stare is everything, folks. No, that was I was playing again. And listen, that moment of, oh gosh, I got sacked through my offensive lineman. You know that.
I don't even feel like that was a Patriots thing. I thought that was a Patriots fan. That was just that encapsulated like everything that they like. Everybody kept telling you, "Hey man, it's a weak schedule, and you barely even beating some of these teams. This isn't it." You told me Drake May is not an MVP candidate. I mean, all the things, and I was just like, I mean, I understand, but they can only play who they play against. But also, when they will be tested, this is going to be real interesting. And boy, it was real interesting in a non-interesting way, if that makes sense.
Boy, did that window slide open awfully quick to put that game where it was. But and listen, in watching that though, there were plenty of hard truths that could be applied to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And what do I mean precisely? Travis, you've come on this show saying that you want a team to meet the standard. Mm-hmm. Not winning only 4 games is a good thing. 9-game improvement, fantastic. We acknowledge you like that, but you want that Lombardi to make it to the Duval area so you and the Duval Devout can celebrate and bring glory to the church of Jaguar fandom, so to speak. And this is a place where we can do all that.
That's it.
And evaluate what we saw. And actually, let me throw this up here there too, right? One thing to learn from the last 2 Super Bowl champions: invest in the defensive line often, especially at defensive tackle. Did we see that part, ladies and gentlemen? Everybody wants to play light boxes with more gap/man run schemes from NFL offense. Having defensive tackles that can flip games is going to be crucial. Yeah, and listen, no disrespect to Eric Armstead. We liked you better.
Shout out JP Acosta, certified ball knower.
Yes, thank you, by the way. I do need to give Mr. Acosta his props. I respect him as well. But no disrespect to Eric Armstead, who had a much better year since he wasn't playing 61% of his snaps at defensive end. I said what I said, Travis. So we've talked about it throughout the year. Was this a group that could stop the run? Well, yes, but we still feel like that defensive tackle position needs work, right?
Well, and that's going to be the biggest thing that we probably get into tonight, because obviously that's the thing that was blatantly like a glaring thing for anyone who is a Jacksonville Jaguars fan or just a fan of NFL football. You probably saw the same thing. Dang, that defensive line just dominated and took over the game, and of course they did. Like if they would have gotten the MVP as a group, that would have happened. And this isn't the first time we've seen this, and that's the part that I really that was my real big takeaway from it, is the fact that most of these more recent Super Bowl rosters, whether it's the Kansas City Chiefs with Chris Jones, whether you're talking about basically both defensive fronts in this game, honestly, now that the Patriots actually had Milton Williams back. I think they actually we got the image here. You got whether it's the 2025 Seattle Seahawks or the 2026 New England Patriots or even the 2008 Pittsburgh Steelers, you're always, whenever you have these top ranked defense, hey man, it's going to be kind of hard for these offenses to kind of get much going, and you're going to have these super low scoring games again, like that 2016 New England Patriots Super Bowl championship. I believe that was the one over the Rams, if I'm not mistaken. So like, in my head, I'm just like, dude, this lets me know everything I need to know. Like, we know Anthony Campanelli was probably the most, unheralded, coaching hire or coaching acquisition in this season for the Jacksonville Jaguars, from my perspective. Like, I just think he didn't get the credit because obviously everybody loves offense. But
we didn't know what to expect from him either. With his former position as just run coordinator in Green Bay as well. I think that's worth mentioning as well, right? What does Green Bay's defense have to tell us? Well, apparently a lot based on what we saw from camp. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But no, quarterbacks and defensive lines, they're must in today's NFL. And those are the two guys who are game wreckers. They just simply change the whole game plan. And I've heard a lot of people in the media this week kind of just keep saying some version of, or package some version of the statement that the Jaguars are built or will be or are being built like the Seattle Seahawks. And I'm just like, I don't see that. I know what you mean. I know what folks are saying. Like, well, it could be, because, and that's kind of where I'm slowly getting to, if this makes sense. Like, they're not there, but in 1 to 2 years, they absolutely could be. But that is obviously projecting, and that's a lot being put on James Gladstone's shoulders this coming few years. But like Michael asked on I believe this was Twitter, basically reflecting on Seattle's performance last night. Like, is the missing component to Jacksonville's pass rush the penetrating defensive tackles, or is it the edge's talent and ability to finish? Like, he's basically comparing Seattle versus Jacksonville's pass rush and kind of saying, is it the chicken or the egg? Is it the defensive tackles or is it defensive ends? And that's the question of the hour. But how do you really answer that without having that defensive tackle presence, if that makes sense?
Yeah, well, and the reason why I'm going to lead by saying defensive tackle is because of how much success the linebacking core saw in Jacksonville, right? Or rather, how much they saw in the passing game with all the interceptions, right? So at some point, the running presence, the run stopping came from Foye and containing of quarterbacks, right? I feel like. Now, it's kind of a, what's his word? When we talk about the Jacksonville Jaguar defensive tackles, we know they have prowess stopping the run game. I think what you in particular, Travis, on this show as the defensive inclined person among the two of us, is that it's the pass rush that's always been the struggle there, right? And I feel like, see, this is what's so weird. Like, and it's a great question in the grab bag. And, this is why I'm stuttering, is because it's normally what does the textbook say, right? That the edge rush pushes things to the middle. So then that the shortest distance between 2 points in the middle can then clean up, and that's your defensive tackles. And I mean, how many times have I said, without Sam Adams and Haloti Ngata, Ray Lewis is still great, but his career doesn't last as long because he's taking more second level hits from pulling guards or whatnot, right? So
yeah, but they are built so different that it feels like it's still a different sort of a conversation, because I mean, Mike McDonald, he said it after the game was over. He was like, the fact that you can play two high safeties and still get home with 4 And he didn't say get home only blitzing the front four guys. He's just saying only four are coming, because very often they would have the two interior defensive linemen drop out and have different guys, rush. And they played a lot of games. They played a game or a stunt, one of those pick stunts on like 50% of the snaps, I believe I saw after the end of the Super Bowl game. That's wild. Did the same thing against the Jaguars. People, if you don't remember, then when Jacksonville Jaguars played Seattle in week 7, week 6. They sacked the Jaguars 7 times. 5 of those were on stunts. Same thing.
We did a lot of show don't tell with Locked On Jaguars, Marcus Ogden, on this show regarding that. We went way in depth with that, and it was a great week to do it, as it would turn out.
Yeah, they're all throughout the season. They're a top 3 team as far as their stunt usage, because they're stressing the communication of the offensive tackles and the offensive guards, and their ability to kind of just push guys along or pass guys off, and also still have a reasonably strong anchor, something that unfortunately they struggle with in New England, and the Jacksonville Jaguars also similarly struggled with that in that week 6 game, again, to the tune of 7 sacks that game the Jaguars gave up. So it's a weird thing that the Jaguars, I think they obviously know that they need some serious investment in the trenches, whether that's offensive line or defensive line. And I know folks are like, wait, offensive line? What are you talking about? The offensive line? No. I've been having this argument, or I even say argument, this conversation.
So we've been having it on this show too, Travis. Like,
I mean, like, am I on the side, like not public, just group chats, or with friends, or with guys that I just talk to about ball in general on the side. Like, hey man, everybody keeps just like slamming the table that this offensive line is kind of what it is going to be next year, and I'm like, I don't know that this is the case. I don't necessarily see it. And I want to bring people back to maybe the new listeners who don't listen to the Duval Dive, who didn't listen to the Duval Dive this past offseason. We talked about this.
Glad you got a hold of your life and caught up with us. Let's leave with that. But go ahead, Travis.
Welcome home. Yeah, there's that. But the other part is that, like, we asked what was James Gladstone, Liam Cohen built offensive line going to be in the 2025 season. We didn't know at the time. This is something that we talked about in the preseason. We gave
I remember
numbers. Yeah, the numbers, looking at the weights and the styles of the different Rams adjacent offensive lines earlier in the season, where the Rams were primarily a gap man blocking team, sort of like what JP Acosta was talking about. Again, we had a whole podcast surrounding just this offensive line conversation. And they were the heaviest line. The Rams were 324 pounds. And meanwhile, the Vikings at the time were the lightest offensive line, and they were primarily a zone blocking team. So we assumed if the Jaguars were somewhere near that range, which they ended up being after Cole Van Lannon beat out Walker Little for that left tackle spot, since Cole Van Lannon is much lighter than Walker Little, they ended up being exactly that same 310 pounds, primarily a zone blocking team in 2025. And it showed on the film. That's the biggest piece. Second half of the season, they couldn't run straight at teams. They couldn't do it. They were running a lot of those jet sweeps around the corner. They weren't able to have those people movers. And from my perspective, I look at someone like a Patrick McCarry and that not working out. A lot of that you could blame on injury. Cool. You blame on injury if you need to. But that Wyatt Milam signing at 317 pounds with a year of development, it sticks out to me. The fact that they tried with Chuma Adoga and it didn't work, but that's 315. The fact that they still brought in Fred Johnson at 325 and it didn't work out, that still points something to me. Let me know, nah, man, they might be adding something. They might be adding something to this combination of this offensive line group, whether it's in the draft or whether it's in a middle tier free agent, to try to get over that hump on that interior run game, because it's not where they want to be. And I honestly believe that.
First of all, KV Hack in the comments, thoroughly shocked that there are people who don't listen to the Duval Dive. Hey, listen, they'll come around. Don't worry about it. But, and there's a couple very interesting conversations in the comments. I mean, 2 regulars over here. By the way, shouts to friend of the show, Mike Clinton, dropping a Duval. But Reyes in the comments, I hope that we can fix the run game. It definitely was better this year, but it fell off hard in the second half. Seattle just showed how important it was. And there's an element here. Social Alki, again, another heavy hitter in the comments. Run game didn't fall off. The ball was put in Trevor hands. Yes, and don't worry, I'll land the plan. Reyes mentioned sure, Trevor was fire, but run game wasn't down the stretch. I think 2 things can be true at the same time. And yeah, both of them are right, because what I would remind the members of the Devout and you divers, especially you Reyes and Social Alki having that great conversation in the comments, that there's an element here, and I keep stressing this part as the fat guy in the room. Building an O-line is not a one-year job. Okay? There's 5 dudes, and there were 3 of them that needed to be replaced last year. Okay? And part of this was a quest to find the guys they might want, right? Fred Johnson was moved off of a lot quicker, but I think this group needed to learn what they wanted to do with Walker Little this season. Because now they know for a fact they don't want him starting at left tackle. I don't care about his contract right now. I don't know that they can necessarily get rid of that albatross the way that they want to in a value-added portion. But if you have an expensive guard and you could still run the ball better when he's playing there, no one, in the words of Lee Corso, no one gives a beep, okay? If Cole Van Lannon can carry his weight at left tackle, you have Walker Little that you could plug in at guard if you're going to move off of Patrick McCarry, and he can do a good job for the most part. I think you have the potential for upgrade with the opportunity to not only continue to develop some dudes you have in the youth, but also add other depth. Why do I keep mentioning stuff in the comments that's so smart? Because Social Alki said something else. I feel the coaching staff has created a standard that competition will determine playing time beyond a reasonable doubt. Absolutely true. Last thing I'll throw in from the comments too. J Baby mentions we need a CB and a safety too. Agreed. I'm going to say something controversial to the DB in the room. I would argue that the beef is most important, because the higher the quality of your beef, the less anybody, good, bad, or otherwise, in defensive secondary has to hold coverage.
No, I mean you already hit it. That's the subject of this podcast from my perspective. It is all about the beef. Like, there are absolute moments that you need to talk about the little people in the room, the wide receivers, the specialists, and the cornerbacks. Like, this ain't it. Like, if you saw that Super Bowl performance, this wasn't about the skill position groups. Like, those guys did their jobs, but this was about domination on the back end and about not enough investments on the front end. And that is still, from my point of view, the conversation surrounding the Jacksonville Jaguars. These teams are built differently. So that's the reason I'm not only focusing on the defensive line, which we're about to get to. It's just about the fact that because I think the Jaguars offensive line is actually probably in a much better situation starting out than the Seattle Seahawks were, because the Seahawks built this bad boy starting out with Geno Smith, in case you don't remember, a few years ago. Right. They started this thing out with Geno Smith, and they were just trying to build up the support staff around, and then they added the quarterback, and this thing took off. So Jaguars are in a better position. I think they're better with raising the floor in that 2025 offseason, from Liam Cohen's and James Gladstone's first season here. And now I think we need to see the roof of this offensive line be raised and not just be comfortable with what it was last season, because I don't think what it was actually what they wanted to be. It's just kind of who they had.
Great take. And 2 things I'd add here as well. You mentioned this past Super Bowl. I would make the argument that who was the best defensive back on the field? The answer is Christian Gonzalez. Does he have a Lombardi? He does not. Second, the factor that supplanted the alleged GOAT. That's right. I don't believe Thomas Edward Patrick Bieber Brady is the greatest of all time. Different episode. Take it up with your mama. But the thing that supplanted him twice was a great defensive line. Just ask Justin Tucker, Michael Strahan, Alford. Jay Alford, I believe was his name, the defensive tackle in the middle. Just that group supplanting Brady. Even he was surprised they only scored, 14 points in the Super Bowl. I'm just saying.
Yeah. James Gladstone here, bro, he has his hands full. And folks, I think they all know it, because I think at this point it's very clear that you can believe in Liam Cohen, and you can believe in Anthony Campanelli. I think they've shown their chops. If you are someone who knows football in depth, you see it. And if you're someone who just knows the basics of football, you're like, I don't know what, but he's putting those guys in the right spots. However you feel about it, know the coaching is right. It's like somebody who don't know how to cook, but they know how to eat. They know what it smells good, and they know it tastes good. And I know what the outcome is, and that these guys are in the right spots. But we still have the questions of what it's going to truly look like as far as the roster is concerned, because we haven't got much of an answer on that, especially if you're talking about the guys up front. I bring those up because, again, you look at the last 4 defensive tackle duos in this postseason. That's the Denver Broncos, the Seattle Seahawks, the Rams, and the New England Patriots. All were top of the league in pressures by that combination of guys. And that's a crazy thing to say, because you can look right across the fact that Turner and Fisk were drafted by James Gladstone. Same draft. Like, if you can do that in Jacksonville in one offseason and flip up that defensive line room from an Eric Armstead and Devon Hamilton to fill in the blank 2 individuals, or keep one of those guys and just move on from the other, if that makes any sense, and find a duo that can do something, even anything remotely like this, you will change the trajectory of this Jacksonville Jaguars organization, because we've already established we can agree with the offensive head coach, and you won't be losing him, but you could potentially lose Anthony Campanelli to a team. He almost did this season in the coaching cycle. But comparatively, like we're just showing you those other teams in comparison. I posted this earlier in the postseason. The Jaguars the top 4 defensive duos in the NFL are 98 to 87 pressures in 2025. The top 5 defensive tackles combined for the Jacksonville Jaguars this season had 59 pressures. That won't get it done. I mean, obviously, we're looking at about 40 pressure difference between the top 4, top 5 defensive tackles for the Jaguars versus what the best 2 guys on those other teams are doing. So to answer Michael's question from earlier, is it the defensive tackles or is it the defensive ends? It's gonna be kind of hard to blame the defensive ends if your tackles are giving you, I don't know, like below average is best. It's probably the best I can say that. Like Eric Armstead's giving you about average, and that's no knock against him, but he fell off after his injury too. Like I
think inconsistent is what you're looking for more than below average, right? Like that's what I would call it with, because to your point, he started
all right. Yeah, if you give me consistently what you gave me early on, well, yeah, that'd be great. But that's not what happened. So if that's truly what you're going to give me all season long, then give me above average all season long, and that you can work with that, because you didn't know how to pivot from that, if that makes sense.
Well, and you know how you get
the Jaguars couldn't rush 4 like Seattle rushed 4 all season.
And you know how you get that when a player who's aging is starting to fall off because he's aging, you get some new blood. Welcome to the draft, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, so that's the big kicker, right, man? Gladstone, he got some ahead of him. He got some work ahead of him, because if everybody who keeps saying that James Gladstone and the Jaguars are on their way to being Seattle, prove it. Like, that's where this line is drawn at that point. It's because you got to prove it, because the Seattle, everybody keeps saying they want to look at the Seahawks and they want the Jaguars to be the Seahawks. All right, look at the Seahawks. Look at what they did. Let's be clear. They kept Leonard Williams in-house in the 2024 free agency season when they re-signed him to a 3-year deal. And he was just 28, I think, just turned 29 years old at the time. They got Sam Darnold at quarterback. In Jacksonville, obviously, you already got Trevor Lawrence. That's your quarterback. So you're good there. They added DeMarcus Lawrence in free agency in 2024. And then you just look at what they did in the draft at that point. Again, looking at the Seahawks in those 3 drafts. 2023, 2024, and 2025, in those 3 years, they solidified their edge position, their defensive tackle, and their linebacker play while drafting Derek Hall in round 2 of 2023. That was Byron Murphy, first round of 2024. They drafted Gray Zabel in 2025. Like, when I keep saying we're focusing on the beef, this is why. Because that's exactly what Seattle did in the first 2 rounds of multiple drafts straight. They focused on the beef. They focused on, if it was a linebacker, it was a pass rushing linebacker. Like, I'm gonna name these names, and you tell me when you find the first one that wasn't a hit. Devin Witherspoon, cornerback.
Nah, he's a
Jackson Smith. Jackson Smith and Jigwa, wide receiver. Yeah. Oh, that's gonna get so much play. Derek Hall, linebacker. Zach Charbonnet, the running back. Byron Murphy, defensive tackle. Gray Zabel, offensive lineman. Safety Nick Emenwari, and tight end Elijah Arroyo. That's the first one I can maybe name that might have been not a hit. I just named all 8 of their draft picks in the first top 2 rounds in the last 3 draft classes, bro. Gladstone.
Yeah. Jimmy Stone's better step it up. But we've said that on this show, Travis, that this is the year that we truly see what he is. I agree.
That's the ball game right there. Like Arroyo's the out of Miami. That's the only one that you may say, all right, he's not a hit yet. And he spent all season playing behind AJ Barner because he only played like 30% of the snaps. So like Gladstone's he's got to cook early in drafts like he did in LA. And like fortunately, we don't have much to grade right now because we're just talking about Travis Hunter. He's the only top 2-round draft pick the Jaguars had in 2025 so far. And as it currently stands right now, the Jaguars don't have a first-round draft pick. I say right now because you know how I feel about this.
Never know what the Stones is gonna do.
You know how I feel about this. Like, hey man, you just don't know. But if he cooks early in the drafts like he did in LA with the Fitz Turner draft and getting 2 guys to kind of just change over that whole room, then you can say the Jaguars are being built like, you know, Seattle. They're being built like LA because then you have the evidence of saying that. So far, all we're doing is dreaming. We just hoping that that's what's going to happen.
Well, yeah, and to this standpoint, I'll say this. The only thing, in my opinion, well, first of all, comments already calling out names. J Baby says, if we can, Franklin Myers, which I believe Social Alki called for earlier, and then he mentions Darrell Jackson Jr., Social Alki. There's a whole lot of guys coming out.
All the JFMs, all the John Franklin Myers. Yeah, we know everybody loves John Franklin Myers, but only one team is gonna get him. It's gonna be interesting.
Facts of the case, and yeah, I would say this too. The other missing piece that I feel like if we're gonna try to compare the Jags to the Seahawks, which I'm with you, I don't think that's an apt comparison. For one, with no disrespect to Kenneth Walker III, I feel like the Jags running back core at the running back position specifically is better than Seattle. I do think that the offensive line in Seattle is a bit more, shall we say, varied. But another element of that, there's nobody close to JSN in the receiver core in the way they're performing today in Duval. Now, can they get there? Maybe.
I mean, I can see the argument if you want to say the Jaguars have their number 1 receiver and that Brian Thomas Jr., if he's playing like the Brian Thomas Jr. you're expecting to see, can be at that level. I would buy that argument. I'm not saying I believe
how he's not there, right?
Right, but I could buy the argument. Fair, fine. I don't even care. I'm not even going to argue about that. But then if you're looking at that offensive line, I think the coaching from Liam Cohen and what they've done with having the answers at the line of scrimmage just makes the run game look a lot better with running into light boxes. Whereas I think Seattle also doesn't have this incredible run game, but I think that offensive line is actually worse roster wise. So I think the Jaguars win on coaching. I think Seattle just wins on slightly, a better roster, but I think generally they're around the same level as far as O-line is concerned. They're just much better on defense as far as personnel is concerned up front. And I actually think the Jaguars might even be better as far as the secondary is concerned, which is crazy to say because I don't think the Jaguars secondary is where it needs to be at all.
Well, and it's hard to observe all that with all the injury. We mentioned that this past week here on the Duval Dive for sure. And I'll say this: when you have a JSN, it's a lot easier to run block too. Something people keep forgetting about. I'll put it that way.
A lot of 1 and 2 man routes, option routes, kind of getting guys open because you still have a guy that good that can kind of just beat the coverages and just outrun the coverages. Again, multiple times. I mean, the Jaguars are playing cover 4 coverage. Just go. And outrun the coverage. Outruns Dewey on a post route. Like when you have a guy with that kind of speed and you trust him enough, that's what I said, math changers. You just need those types of guys. And that's why the Jaguars consistently have to continue winning in those first 2 rounds. And that's what's going to break this thing wide open if they can continue doing that with Trevon Walker, with obviously Travis Hunter, with Trevor Lawrence. All these top picks need to continue playing like top picks, and eventually, hopefully, the Jaguars will be built similar to a team like that. But it might not matter. This is the part where I'm really stuck on. Reyes says, can we still believe in Mason Smith will be something? What a rough season for him.
Hold on to that. There's a grab bag question that's going to come up in the weeks later, too. I can tell you we're going to address that at some point, Reyes.
That's an interesting question because short version.
It's in the grab bag. We'll answer it then. That's
my short version on that is, hey, man, if you want to believe in Santa Claus, you can. Like, I ain't got nothing to do with that. But we'll see, because the proof is going to be on the pudding on whatever happens on the grass.
PJ comes in here. Yo, should I get season tickets? Fool, with all the money you won, how the hell don't you get season tickets?
He's spending other people money to get them season tickets. So yeah, congratulations, sir.
Literally playing with house money.
Well, this is the worst part about it. So my biggest truth from this Super Bowl victory is like so we saw the Jaguars played against the Super Bowl champion Seahawks and lost by a touchdown. And I think if the Jaguars would have played their A game, they absolutely could have won that. The teams are built significantly different. But my biggest takeaway from this Super Bowl game is, man, 2025 no longer matters. Like, it legitimately doesn't matter anymore, bro. Because depending on how you want to frame this, how you want to look at it, like you got Ethan Softly August on X as say we can probably chalk up the 2025 AFC as one of the worst conferences in NFL history, which I don't believe.
It's a fascinating exploration in this fact alone. The number of elite quarterback injuries is significant. Patrick LaVon Mahomes II, Lamar Demetrius Jackson, Joey Burr. I mean, if he's not elite, but CJ
Allen late season.
Josh Allen late. Justin Herbert had to miss time late, right, with the surgery and all that, and he was an MVP candidate before that happened.
Bo Nix
still should have been one. That's a whole other question. Yeah, Bo Nix getting eliminated from the playoffs prematurely in lieu of Jared Stidham, who still almost won a game, by the way, but there are actual Patriots fans and media members out there who want to push back against the schedule was it wasn't easy. Shut up. Anyways, so with all that to say, and I think where you're going, Travis, is where I'll match you in a statement I've made throughout the season. The NFL was drunk in 2025. Okay?
Yes.
Like, we unironically used the term on this very show. You critical fan, this team makes me drink. Travis D. Holm used the phrase Super Bowl contender unironically about your Jacksonville Jaguars this season. Okay. Now, can they get there again? I'm on record saying today, no, I don't think they're that team, but they can make improvements to get there in the offseason. I will reiterate that here. But all of the above to say, 2025 isn't going to be the same, folks. And the first place schedule thing is real. Okay. Right. By the way,
it don't even have to be the first place schedule part, though. It can be something as simple as just injury luck. Something as simple as another team doesn't have injury misfortune. Like all of a sudden you have a healthy Indianapolis Colts and they don't fumble the second half of the season, and maybe they win 5 of those games, and you have a much more competitive division. And now you
don't need Uncle Phil to finish the season.
And now you have a 10-win Jacksonville Jaguars team that's fighting for a wild card all of a sudden, because you got 3 teams that are just competitive in the AFC South, because that exists now, right? Like, there's so many ways that this thing cannot be what it was in 2025, despite the fact that the Jaguars actually might be a legitimately better roster. Right. They might be a better team with the worst outcome, simply because you can't control that piece. So I'm just here to say 2025 no longer matters. So everyone who keeps saying, hey, man, let's take all this free agent money and bring back Devin Lloyd and bring back Travis Etienne and bring back all the band, and you're falling into the same trap that the Jaguars fell into after the 2022 season, man. That's Trenton Bulkyism all day. Like, that's how you fall into that trap, where other teams now have a whole season of game tape on you and a whole offseason to figure out how best to stop what you're doing. And then you didn't really improve in a significant way as far as the roster is concerned that season. You hustling backwards. Like, that's what it is. You are making it so much harder on yourself versus just saying, I don't believe that this is going to be what my challenge is going to be next year. I need, social alky. I need these. It's all about drafting and developing, getting these guys better. Absolutely. But it's also about bringing in guys who are better than those guys, and they can beat them out for those positions, because I truly believe in competition and raising the floor for everyone. And if they don't, they ain't going to be here either.
Continuous upgrade, 1,000,000,000%. PJ Brown agrees as well. And Reyes, I got to give you credit. I actually used this line in a guest spot I did with the Earnestly Speaking podcast earlier this week. Just saying, the Jags beat KC before beating KC was cool. Now, granted, Charger fans may argue with that, but nonetheless, doing it in prime time was certainly done in such a fashion to make it cool, we'll say.
Yeah. So don't feel like because Travis Etienne played incredibly, and he did, to be very clear, played incredibly, that guarantees that he's going to have a spot on this roster in 2026, or that he should, or quote unquote deserves, because I hate that phrase.
Maybe he deserves, but the money is the issue, guys, right?
Yeah, I mean, everybody deserve everything they want. Don't mean they gonna get it. Like, that's not how life works. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Devin Lloyd deserves to be paid.
Deserves to analyze football, but that's a separate conversation.
Devin Lloyd deserves $20 million a year, and I pray that he gets it. I don't know if that's gonna be in Jacksonville, but that's the point, that he should get it. It just may not be here. And congratulations if he does. But the point is, for the Jacksonville Jaguars to be a better team in 2025 with 2026, with better outcomes in 2026, they got to go hard in the paint as far as drafting the trenches, the interior offensive line, interior defensive line. And that for me means multiple defensive tackles brought in, and at least one, if not multiple, offensive linemen brought in, whether it's by free agency and the draft. I do mean that.
Well, and actually, Sunstain matches your feelings about Devin Lloyd with Etienne. Etienne deserves a bag, but maybe not with the Jaguars, though. Yeah, I listen.
That's it.
Beyond a reasonable doubt, and I think that's deserves is so tricky in this world, you know.
Hey, it's a job. So it's a job. So your production should match your salary. And I'm going to say that for everybody in every job that you work. If you work at McDonald's and you are the best fry cook that's out there in these streets, and everybody's driving from they driving from Arlington Expressway out to Duval, out to Dunn Avenue for your perfectly seasoned McDonald's fries, I think you need to be paid accordingly. But just like that, I think Travis Etienne also needs to be paid to the level of his production. Unfortunately, that just may be outpricing the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have 2 running backs in the stable from this past season and could potentially have another one this upcoming free agency and or NFL draft. It is what it is. That's capitalism for you.
Well, yeah, there you go. And we can
get to that last one. Yeah,
definitely need more talent on defense. Yes, says PJ Brown. But the last point. Better AFC teams. I teased this. Better AFC. I just
thought this was a great point, man.
It is a great point. AFC teams that would have put up a better fight in the Super Bowl. Broncos with a healthy Bo Nix. I don't think anybody's arguing that. The Buffalo Bills, featuring a Josh Allen that forgot how to play with poise after he played the Jacksonville Jaguars. And of course, the Jacksonville Jaguars, who were in a relatively close game with the Seahawks earlier this year and just got their entire rear ends whooped by stunts. The Patriots had the easiest path, facing 3 inept offenses, or at the very least super injured offenses. And there's a real argument that they weren't even a top 3 team in the AFC. And based on these stats, based on this tweet alone here from Joel Moran, he has them at 4th at the highest based on that, which is a fascinating exploration.
Yes, and that's the unfortunate part. I mean, we all talked about this, and we all knew what this was going to be earlier in the offseason. And I say early in the offseason because I want everybody to think back for a second. Stop and just think of how you thought early this season. Let's go to the bye week. We all were saying the same thing, and if you weren't, you were dang lie. You were saying the Rams and the Seahawks, that's going to be the champion, the Super Bowl champion, or at least that was going to be the representative on the NFC side. And on the AFC, we was like, I don't know, man, they drunk. Like they doing something weird over there. We gonna figure out what it's gonna be later. Like we all had that same thought, because it was like, hey man, the NFC, that's the real Super Bowl. AFC, we gonna figure it out. And whatever team gets it right in the second half of the season on the AFC side, maybe they'll have a chance in that one, a puncher's chance, if that makes sense, to kind of take these guys out.
Let me blow your mind, right? Like the Kansas City Chiefs, who eventually did get eliminated back at that bye week, as you're talking about, after losing to the Seahawks, after getting worked by the Rams in London, such that it was, which, again, shouts to Aaron Cosarelli, Believe in Rams, for setting me right when I intimated that the NFC West was a 2-team race and told me to look out for the Seahawks. Ma'am, you did it. Okay. But with all that being said, back then, Patrick LaVon Mahomes II was still a sure thing to bring the Kansas City Chiefs back into the fold, right?
Yes. Yes, he still had a legitimate shot there. And but that was like my point. It was like when we're looking at this like the Kansas City Chiefs were an imperfect team that went to the Super Bowl in the 2024 season. And then we look at this like the same thing happened in the 2025 season where the AFC representative simply was not up to snuff. They just weren't up to what's going on that NFC side. Like it's just a lot more assassins over there right now.
There's a lot more defenses that are tough over there right now, specifically.
So that's when I say 2025 don't matter. And I keep telling folks that don't get too comfortable. Like I'm happy the Jaguars were a playoff contender. I'm happy the Jaguars were even a Super Bowl contender because I think that they were in the right season. This season, they were a good enough team to truly be in this game. And I still feel like they just fumbled the bag as far as that's concerned. But I say that to say that ain't the goal. I'm happy we're here. But now let's keep things in context and let's remember what the real goal is. And the real goal is that juggernaut, that monster that's sitting over here, those LA Rams, those Seattle Seahawks. And that is what it looks like. It looks like hitting on 7 of your 8 top 2 picks in 3 drafts straight because now I have the most dominant defensive front. It's because I brought in 2 dominant, in my front 7 linebackers and or defensive ends over the last 2 draft classes. It's hitting on all these things and building this team and getting the right guy at the right time. Well, the Jacksonville Jaguars got Travis Hunter. Great job. We'll see what they have in that 2025 draft class because there's a lot of guys here that I do like. I just don't know that they're going to be hits necessarily yet. Caleb Ransall, we'll see. Bayshaw Tootin, we'll see. LaQuint Allen, dog. But the top guys, you know what I'm saying? Like, That's what we're still waiting on. We don't really have answers on. And I think it'll be a little extra or over the top for us to say, hey, they're being built like the Seahawks because Duval. You got to be better than that.
Because Duval. Listen, and I'll say this, because there was a day in the past that because Duval, we could have assumed this front office would run it back. Am I making a bulky reference? You're damn right I am.
Yes.
Because he's not in the front office, everybody among the Duval devout is confident that this front office will continue to build as you intimate they should, Travis.
I think they will. I hope they will. But I also feel like I still have one big question that just lingers over my head, and I ain't gonna BS folks about it.
Why would you start?
I don't know how I'm going to feel when one of these guys is extended, because I feel like something's going to happen with one of them, and I don't know if it's going to be Montaric Brown or if it's going to be Travis Etienne or if it's going to be Devin Lloyd. But when one of these guys, because I'm currently sitting in the opinion, and I'm going to be clear about it. I'm sitting in the opinion that none of those guys get extended, and none of those guys are on the roster in 2026. So one of them is going to end up being on this roster probably. Like I can't believe they're going to go over 3 on all 3 of them, just allowing all of them to go. It's possible because I still think they're going to be in the comp picks game. So Shaki, comp picks, that's what it's about. Right. You lose all 3 of the guys, you get comp picks next year. Dope. You build through the draft. Like that's a great plan, but I don't know that 100% sure that that's the route that they go. So I don't know how I'm going to feel when they do open up cap space, which we talk about. Hey, thank you, Will. Says, yo, Travis, enjoy your articles on Big Cat Country. Keep up the good work. The Big Cat Country article that I put up earlier today, discussing all the options as far as restructures and building cap space and the ways that Jaguars can open up around $50 to $60 million of cap space should they choose to. They just all come with some strings attached and some real tough questions, like similar to like what we talked about on this podcast over the last week and a half. So you know what's going down.
Hey, but listen, if Foyer is willing to restructure to let some guys in, I'm down with it 100%. I don't think you'll argue with that.
So, but that's where I'm really like leaning at the end of all of this is I don't know how I'm going to feel when they do end up going through all these restructures and then they trade one guy or release one guy and then they do all that to re-sign fill in the blank person. Let's say Devin Lloyd or Travis Etienne or whoever. And I don't know how I'm going to feel about that, if that makes sense.
Well, listen, don't panic until it's time to. You're making a lot of assumptions that it will happen, and I think it will, but we have been surprised before by this front office, and that's where I will leave you. So, with that all being said, as we move towards what the next potential surprise could be in the upcoming weeks, Travis D. Holmes, tell the world where you can be found.
I can be found on all the socials, Travis D. Holmes. If you want to talk some Jacksonville Jaguars football, whether I'm doing it in the Twitter space, we're doing it in the clubhouse, or we're doing it at some random point on Facebook, because why not? I don't know. I'm here to talk Jags football with you guys. So I'm happy that you guys indulge me with this weird little voice that I got. But yes, if you're listening to the sound of this on the YouTube side, please do us a quick favor and just click that like button as you see splashing here on the bottom. We appreciate you guys allowing us to get over the 1,000 subscribers and finally being monetized on the YouTube side and the podcast side via the Believe Podcast Network. And if you're listening to us on the audio side, please rate and review us with the all fives. Because again, this thing is only growing because you guys continue engaging with us with these questions, with these likes, with these follows. But yeah, check out the articles over on bigcatcountry.com, and let's keep this thing locked in this off season, because in season, off season, it don't matter. It's always time for Jaguars football. Let me know where you can be found, bro.
It's Duval for all y'all. That's all I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And listen, it ain't just the whole YouTube partner thing and then getting things worked out with Believe and all that. We actually have fun talking to you, believe it or not. So make sure you join in the fun. Listen, KB, I know you're surprised that there are people that don't listen to the Duval Dive, and you know what? Help them help themselves by starting to do so, okay? Of course. So at Days In, I am still Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at the SOTG. Find me on Facebook is the student of the game. Check out my coverage of UCF Knights football and basketball, as well as my work covering the Orlando Magic, all of those things there too. So for my personal champion, Travis D. Holmes, this is Kyle D. Nash. Kyle D. Nash. The middle
Kyle D. Nasty.
If anyone's curious. But this is Kyle Nash, the student of the game. And until next time, everyone, class dismissed.